friends, this is Christopher davis-shannon and welcome to the final week of breaking down George Formby's special ukulele techniques. Now we've already gone over his most important techniques, the split stroke and the triples, but there are a couple other things that he would use for extra spice to just create a different sound to his playing. So we're going to start off with the claw. The claw is just an emphasized downstroke that's really adapted from a flamenco rasciado stroke, but is much easier to execute than the original rasciado stroke, as we do not have to make it continuous or to keep going. It's just for one beat. What we'll do to make the claw is, instead of coming down with just the nail of our first finger on a chord, we will relax our hand, open it up, and it will make a C shape like this. And we're going to allow all of our fingers to just hit the strings one by one. It is not precise. There is not an exact rhythm to this, but it creates this slight arpeggiation. You don't have to follow through with your thumb. Sometimes Formby would, sometimes Formby wouldn't. As long as we're getting a few extra notes in there, it just helps to emphasize one of these strums. Listen to this if I just throw it into the first bar of the pattern that we've been working on. So it's just a little emphasis to that first beat. Let's give that a shot with just the first 4 bars of our pattern together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you note at the very end of this pattern that the C chord coming on beat 4 seems a little early, and that is by design. This is another thing that Formby would do quite frequently, is he would actually anticipate a chord change before the band would switch to it, which even furthered his sense of syncopation. So this is just something to keep in mind, that in Formby style tunes, many times we'll be switching to the next chord on beat 4 before the rest of the song harmonically actually changes to that chord. Now, in addition to the early chord changes and the claw stroke, there is also the Formby fan stroke, which is probably one of his most spectacular techniques. The thing is, it is really just a triple stroke, but we are playing slightly differently to give a sense of illusion that our hand is floating over top of the uke. And we're going to talk about 2 different ways that Formby would apply this to his playing. Technique-wise, it's the same as our triple stroke, the thumb roll that we covered last week. It will be 2 downstrokes and then 1 upstroke, but the difference is just the first downstroke. In lieu of using our first fingers we generally would, we're going to lead with the nail of our pinky. And when we do this, we're going to open up the rest of our hand. So it looks like everything is hitting the strings, but really it's just the pinky, then down with the thumb, and then up with the first finger. So when we execute the fan stroke, it is as if our hand is hovering over top of the instrument. Practice this very slowly. As we build up speed, you can see the hovering motion as it comes through. Now the question is, where do we put this in our playing? So the first way that Formby would do this is in the double downstroke. So much as we talked about last week with the shake triple, replacing the double downstroke in our split stroke technique, we can use our fan stroke instead to do this. You know, the fan stroke is really 2 downstrokes and then an upstroke, which is what we have in our split technique. So if we look at just the first couple bars here of this pattern, we come down on the F, and we do that twice, and then we go into our split stroke pattern where we originally have the double downstroke. We will now play the fan stroke. So it'll sound a little bit something like this. So all we are doing is replacing all of those double downstrokes now with a fan strum instead, which means also that we're not going to be now isolating the notes on the G and A strings. So we'll be losing a little bit of that melodic interplay between our 2 outer strings, but in lieu of that, we have a nice illusion. So let's try this little 4-bar pattern together with a bit of the fan stroke thrown in. 1, 2, 3, 4. I mentioned earlier that Formby would use the fan stroke in two different applications. First, as a replacement for the double downstroke, but we'd also occasionally use it as a replacement for the thumb roll triple. If you recall to the beginning of breaking down the fan stroke, it's really the same thing as a thumb roll triple, except that we are using our pinky instead of our index finger. So it's really a logical substitution for that technique. If we look at just say the G minor bar that we have in this pattern, we can start it out with a fan stroke over the thumb roll triple like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you just practice your triplets and we go into a split stroke after that. Let's try that together. So we'll include the fan stroke that we already did, replacing the double downstroke, and now we will add in the fan stroke for a thumb roll triplet. 1, 2, 3, 4. I mentioned earlier that Formby had a tendency to anticipate chord changes before they actually happened in the song. And a unique way that he did that is when he played bar chords, he would tend to slide into those bar chords, starting a half or whole step down on the same bar chord, voicing a half or whole beat before he would actually need to play that chord. So we can see this in the bridge of Our Sergeant Major. If we start on our G minor bar, we can actually throw a D flat 7th chord into the end of this, sliding into a D 7th chord. So it's just your standard D 7th voicing, down a half step on the end of 4, and we'll slide it up. So very slowly the pattern would sound like this. So we would just slide it into there, giving just a little bit more a sense of motion. And he would also tend to do this over triples as well, or whenever he was playing a bar chord, this was really fair game. So let's try this little 4-bar section together with that slide in there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now all of these little ornaments we just talked about, you can really throw anywhere in any of these Formby pieces that you want. There are no hard and fast rules to these, as there are with the split stroke and the triple strums that really have their specific place. These are elements that we can use to spice up a tune, and that's exactly what we're going to do next week. We're going to work through an entire arrangement of a Formby solo using all of these techniques that we have covered over the last month.